Memorial Day weekend plans, you may need to move indoors. And rain chances, that's what we're talking about. Moving into the weekend, they're going to continue to stick around. And not only are they going to stick around, some heavy downpours once again possible. So let's start with the first 12. And what you see there is increased coverage around 80% there by 10, 70% by 1, and continue to be around 50 to 60% heading into the early hours of our Friday. So anyone looking to make some plans Friday will need to have that umbrella tied to them at all times. That level 1 threat primarily along and east of Highway 45. And like I mentioned, we're specifically looking at a small non-zero tornado chance for that level 1 threat. Other risk areas not consisting of here in North Mississippi, as you see the damaging wind threat, primarily North Alabama. And as we look at the large hail threat, those are primarily going to be well out towards Texas, meaning that our only concern, the only reason why there's a level 1 threat is for that small tornado potential getting into our Friday. Now, while it is there, we're not impressed with where things stand right now on that tornado potential, specifically here in North Mississippi. Where it lines up a little bit better, we'll track that here in just a moment using our futurecast, but fortunately, our potential is just very, very low. Still enough to have a plan in place, but don't really go about the day expecting multiple tornado warnings to be issued. This is going to be a very small threat throughout the entirety of our Friday. But flash flooding concerns, I did tell you that I wouldn't be shocked at all if they up this to a slight risk for that flash flooding potential, but as of right now, a marginal threat in place due to the amount of rainfall we're going to see. And so far throughout the area, we've actually gotten a ton of rainfall already. This is just over the past 3 hours, so since our 6 o'clock broadcast, and you can see that some areas amounting to, let me try and pinpoint this exactly, and I'm going to go right across this line, even up here towards Tupelo, getting a ton of rainfall, and up there towards Red Bay, that's going to be about 3/4 of an inch, Tishomingo County, 1 inch there towards Manatee, 1 inch closer to the Enville area, 1.2 inches in Yalobusha County, 0.88 inches there in Holmes and Carroll County. So this entire line is what we've been watching for over the past 3 hours, and it's just a heavy downpour over a very short duration of time, and that line continues to remain overhead even at 9 o'clock. You see those increased chances? Well, this is why we get these bands that are moving right underneath that warm front that's allowing for some of the heavier downpours to stick around. The one note with this forecast is watch over the last 3 hours how it's a bit more intense along that leading band. Now as we get towards 8, 9 o'clock, the heavier downpours have come down. The lightning activity have come down. I'm blocking that, but you see 200 strikes around 7. As we've gotten more to 9 o'clock, you see how that potential is really diminished. We're 40 strikes as of the 9 o'clock hour, and that will continue to come down overnight. But additional development expected to build in towards the Jackson area. Let's go ahead and change those radar sites, and let's go to that latest scan. And I want to look down south, and you're getting some of that additional chance developing really towards southwest Alabama and southeast Mississippi, but out there towards Louisiana and Arkansas, this is that batch of rainfall that's moving in overnight that's going to be more widespread and potentially add a few more strikes to the situation as well. But it's really just going to be the heavy rainfall that we're dealing with. So this entire frontal boundary gradually working its way north, all things considered. This has not been a fast mover by any means, but the further this goes north, the higher our rain chances do get, and that coverage is expected to increase. You see, we have this cluster down there, Meridian to Hattiesburg, another cluster from Greenville to Monroe, Louisiana, and that will gradually work its way into North Mississippi overnight, so it should be a good night to get some sleep. It's good sleeping weather in my opinion, especially with a small severe weather risk on our Friday. Go ahead and get that rest now so that way you can be alert in case any of these storms get on the stronger side tomorrow. As we continue through our Thursday night and into our Friday morning, there's that increase in coverage. Again, this cluster working its way into the northern half of the Magnolia State and upping those rain chances overnight. Where we could get a few storms is really along that leading edge of the band, similar to what we got earlier on this evening. A similar situation can happen as that low pressure system begins to develop out there towards Arkansas, and a few of those bands working their way along that warm front that could have a few rumbles of thunder. Right here you get that low pressure formation, and right behind that warm front is where we get the more significant chances of rainfall, and of course the red showing the heavier output of rainfall. So by 9, 10, 11 o'clock on your Friday, those rain chances continue to up, and even by the afternoon, packing a punch with some heavy rainfall and a good bit of lightning once again. So the next 24, we do see that thunderstorm activity continue into our Friday. We're 50% coverage around 6, 60% by 9, and heading further into the afternoon, those chances come down primarily due to coverage, but they will still pack a punch where they do pop up. We're only about 40% there by 6 and 30% there by 9. So still dealing with those chances even into the latter half of our Friday and extending more into our Memorial Day weekend. So coming up in the next 60 seconds, we're going to be looking ahead to that weekend forecast and what you need to plan around. And I'm just going to say it now, you're going to be planning around those rain chances. But as we look at that extended pattern, it's going to be that small, limited severe weather potential on our Friday that we're all paying attention to, timing that out and letting you guys know the areas that we're expecting it to be potentially the highest chances of receiving it. That all coming up as Mississippi Live Weather at 9 continues right after the break.
When C.K. Little opened his doors in downtown Corinth nearly 80 years ago, his plan was simple: deliver excellent service and exceed expectations. That's why we say a little gift goes a long way.
Every legend starts somewhere.
Not with perfection, but with the decision.
The decision to show up, work harder, and believe this place can change everything.
At Northeast, you're more than just a number.
We're built on opportunity, and our students are willing to rise to the occasion.
Here, success isn't handed to you. It's earned.
You don't just leave with a degree, you leave as a legend.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
That entire 7-day forecast bringing a lot of rain chances here to North Mississippi, and with those rain chances comes a lot of rainfall. That's right, heavy downpours, primary threat that we are watching heading into the next couple of days, and including your weekend forecast as well. Out in Oxford, getting a few of those showers tonight. We're 72 degrees, dew point at 70, but look at the light to moderate rainfall scattered around Lafayette County, giving folks exactly what they need in rainfall to hopefully alleviate some of that drought. But nonetheless, we've gotten rainfall over the last several days and will continue over the next several days. So get used to it and get that umbrella out and about because it will be worth your while. Mabon, we're 72 degrees as well, still dealing with some of that moisture lingering around the area. Just a very soggy evening across the Magnolia State, and that includes parts of Mabon there in Webster County, and then Cleveland showing up there as well, 72 degrees. And folks out in Cleveland, folks out in the northwest part of the viewing area dealing with some increased coverage as that cluster of showers works its way further into the Magnolia State. But rainfall, like I said, we've seen it over the past several days. Just looking at some of those totals, it's jaw-dropping. I know I say that every night, but those numbers just continue to come in higher and higher. We're 6.1 inches in Carroll County. This up here towards Amory coming in around that same margin. Even down there towards the Shannon area just outside of it, 5.1 inches. North of Holly Springs, we're sitting at 4 inches. Oxford, 3.2. Grenada, 2.1, and the list just goes on and on and on, where we're getting high amounts of rainfall and additional amounts of several inches moving into the pattern as well. So my wife, she called me earlier this evening and was like, Gabe, you don't need to water. Well, up here in Lee County, we finally got our rain chances. Took a little bit to get here, so you did enjoy a good portion of the day being more on the beautiful side. But as we've gotten further into that 9 o'clock hour, that band just works its way towards the north. And if you're up there towards Blue Mountain, towards Corinth, towards Hernando, and you're wondering, Gabe, you've been seeing rainfall all day and we have not seen a drop just yet, just be patient, because as you can see based off those latest trends, this line continues to shift its way up towards the north. And as that warm front lifts north, we'll take these rain chances with it. So your threat just going to be more during the late night hours, and that's perfect, lining up with your sleep schedule as well. But let's take a look over the past just 10 minutes. Let me put it on the latest scan. You know, we're 9:10 right now, and we started the broadcast at 9. Well, when we started the broadcast, we were at 40 strikes. Those strikes have even come down since the start of our broadcast, about 25%, as we sit around 32 strikes. So the intensity coming down, the daytime heating clearing on out, and that's going to limit that strength overnight as well. But down south, a little bit of a different situation. Even the National Weather Service down in Jackson recognizing the potential for a few brief tornadoes down there in the southern half of the Magnolia State, and that's the area that I'm focused on for any of that tornadic development. I know it does include us here in North Mississippi, but our potential even lower than folks down south where they sit under that level 1 threat as well. Not saying they need to up it to a level 2, but if there was a level 0.1, I think that's where we would fall under compared to the level 1 that they're experiencing down there in southeast Mississippi. Flash flooding, also a concern. You can see some of those flood warnings towards Jonesboro over there in Louisiana, the Wynn Parish, and then another flash flood warning towards the Franklin Parish. Down south, we're seeing that towards Hancock County and even for Harrison County. And we do have a flood warning for the Pearl River out there towards the Picayune community. We do have a flood warning for Holmes County as well. That's going to be the Big Black River over there towards Holmes and Itala County. So even experiencing some of those flooding conditions up here in the northern half of the state. But nonetheless, flooding will continue to be a concern getting into tomorrow as well. I think with the increased coverage tonight and the additional chances tomorrow, that it could be even an increased threat from what we saw today. But where we sit with that severe weather risk, I told you guys, down towards the south and east, this area right here, south of Meridian, is what I'm watching for any of those brief tornadoes that are possible. We saw a warning north of Gulfport tonight. We also saw a warning southwest of Jackson. I just don't see it getting this far north. We don't have the same environment as they do down south. And while there is a little bit more of that upper level wind support, it's still not anything extreme that's going to be conducive of these tornadoes. So yes, we sit under that level 1 risk. I still have my doubts in the grand scheme of things that, production heading into tomorrow. So that's a good thing. We don't want tornadoes to happen, and we'll take the rain chances while they're here because we do still sit under a pretty significant drought. Day planner, 11 p.m. we're 80%, 2 a.m. we're 70%, and that coverage coming down a bit. Just the overnight hours, we're getting those clusters moving on through, and that's why we keep those rain chances around and even a few rumbles expected. But overall, that intensity, it's even come down in my mind from what we were tracking tonight at 6 o'clock. For those overnight chances. So let's track that out on Futurecast. One of the big reasons why we still believe that coverage will happen is because we have this stationary front that starts to lift its way towards the north. And as that lifts north, brings up more of those rain chances because we sit right in that warm sector. That warm sector, that's conducive for more of those showers. And I think that a few of those reds that are showing up towards Hollandale and Belzona, that's going to be paired with more of an electric environment. And these bands that are working their way on through, that's going to have some lightning with it as well. So I don't think we remain rumble free overnight. But I don't think we're talking about strong to severe storms overnight. 6 a.m. still dealing with those light to moderate showers, and even the intensity there has come down from what we tracked tonight at 6 o'clock. So things downtrending in a good way, and hopefully that will continue to take shape getting into tomorrow morning as well. But that's definitely looking much better, and we were still having our doubts at 6, but now solidifying those at the 10 o'clock hour. We're 64 Tupelo, Houston, and Bruce for the start of our Friday, 67 Cleveland and Clarksdale, 68 Greenville and Belzona. So your school day forecast, I believe it's the final day we'll be showing your school day forecast, so soak it in. Not going to see this graphic again until August, believe it or not. Drop off 67 degrees, 75 towards lunch, and 79 by that final bell. And ending the year with rain as that sticks around from start to finish. So grab that rain gear. You're going to need it all day long. So looking at our Futurecast, look at the difference in intensity. All of these storms that are working through Monroeville, Alabama, even towards the Mobile area, that all looks a little bit more intense than what we're getting here in North Mississippi. Even as we shift that towards the noontime hour, just look at the development, the strengthening that's happening with these cells down there towards southern Alabama and southeast Mississippi. That environment just a little bit different than what we're getting here in North Mississippi. But with that being said, if we zoom it back in here to our North Mississippi coverage area, a few of these storms will pack a punch. I just don't think there's enough of that rotational loft that'll get these storms to produce a tornado. It's just going to be an uphill battle, that's for sure, especially during those morning hours. But by the afternoon, you get that daytime heating intensifying some of these storms. So that would be, if there is a corridor of any of those brief tornadoes that are possible, I would say late morning, early afternoon, you might get a brief one. But that's that non-zero chance that we were talking about. But even then, I still have my doubts. I think this will primarily pack a punch with heavy rainfall, lightning, and even a few of those strong wind gusts as those shift through the eastern portion of our viewing area and further into northwest Alabama. That's by, late morning, early afternoon, continuing into the evening hours, still seeing some of those heavy outputs. But overall, we should be staying below severe limits. Down south, a little bit more of a primed environment to get some of that brief tornadic development. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're watching us down in South Mississippi, we're talking brief. We're talking weak tornadoes. This is not a strong tornado producer. We're just not in that environment for our Friday forecast. 78 New Albany, 77 Booneville and Iuka, 80 Houston, Starkville, and Columbus, and we're 82 Belzona, 81 Greenville and Greenwood. So like I mentioned, Friday, that level 1 threat is in place. That's primarily going to be for those morning chances. And once that clears out, we're just looking at a soggy afternoon and a soggy evening ahead. We do still have that frontal boundary that's going to allow some of those chances to stick around, but Friday night, trending down on those rain chances, potentially giving us some drier conditions for our Friday night plans, and overnight should be a calmer evening to get some rest. But getting more towards our pre-dawn hours, more development does take shape, and towards our Saturday morning, seeing additional chances start to build here in North Mississippi. We're 64 Water Valley, Oxford, 65 towards Houston and Grenada, 68 Belzona, 66 Kosciuszko and Louisville, and 64 showing up Corinth and Booneville. So a pretty mild start. But that mild air is all part of the moisture that's in the air, and that's going to allow more of those chances heading into our mid-morning hours. Even these getting a little bit on the heftier side with some of those heavy downpours and lightning, but overall coverage a bit down from what we're going to be getting on Friday. That's a positive because I know it is Memorial Day weekend, and as we track those rain chances, unfortunately by the afternoon they do increase in coverage. So your morning, probably your best opportunity to get some of those drier conditions as we stay about 30% coverage during those morning hours. By the afternoon, though, we're increasing that to about 50 to 60%. And as you see some of those darker reds move in, that's where we are going to get some of those heftier showers, and that is going to amount to several inches of rainfall to add to those totals once again. So flash flooding threat, we just can't escape it at this point. 83 Water Valley, 85 Houston and Starkville, 82 Hamilton, Alabama. We're 83 Senatobia and South Haven, 85 Greenville and Belzona, and continue to be a pretty consistent pattern in the temperature world. But looking at those rain chances, we see those stick around into the start of the week, even by midweek, even at the latter part of the week. Folks, I looked at the long range forecast. Not much of a break when we're talking rain chances heading into the end of our May. And as we look ahead at that 7-day forecast, I apologize. Seems that was put on the wrong thing. Let's get an updated 7-day in there. You can see that our Memorial Day weekend stays with those soggy conditions, and into parts of next week, those scattered chances do linger around. Temperature-wise, consistent in the mid-60s to start out the day, and by the afternoon, low to mid-80s. So the rainfall keeps the cooler temperatures around, cooler relatively speaking. Earlier on this week, we were in the low 90s, so anything's cooler than that, right? So as I bring up chat here real quick, any questions that we have, make sure to go ahead and put those in the chat. I do see that, let me see, I'm trying to catch up with the chat real quick. I do see a few folks talking about Tupelo earlier on this evening with the heavy rainfall. I do see Terry asking, is it going to be safe to sleep? Yes, it will be safe to sleep. Where we get that potential, that limited non-zero chance of a tornado would be more towards our morning after the sun does rise. So that will be looking a lot better overnight, just dealing with those rain chances overnight. But seeing everything downtrend in the lightning production tells me that the energy is just not going to be there overnight for these to intensify into anything too major. So I think we're going to be good to sleep. Actually, let me take the I think out. We're going to be good to sleep and wake up for the start of our Friday. I appreciate all the support there, Nikki, saying trusting Gabe and Matt, so good night, and I wish you all good fortune. Yes, we will be sitting well overnight, just going to be getting that rainfall, but as we head into tomorrow, that potential is there for maybe a strong storm. I appreciate the compliment, Elliot, on the tie. I believe this was, God, who this was given by, but I kind of like that, the purple and blue, kind of, cool color. It's cool. You get the pastels mixing in there. But I appreciate all of you guys for joining us tonight. Now, coming up tonight at 10 o'clock, I do encourage you guys to stick around and, watch that latest forecast because, hey, we're entering the summer months, so bedtime, not a thing anymore, so you guys can stay up. You guys can tune into the Mississippi Live Weather app. If you don't have the app, give it a download on iOS and Android today. Like, subscribe, follow on all of our social medias, and tune into that 10 o'clock broadcast. That is where we're going to be discussing some of this rainfall, how much of that output we are expecting, how many additional rain chance, or how many additional inches we're talking about. And we're also going to be looking in more detail at that severe weather threat, looking at some of those rotation tracks, how that has trended since 6 o'clock, and where is the primary focus for those rotating storms. We'll be assessing that in much more detail right here from the Room to Room Weather Center. So tune in at 10 for the very latest, and we'll see you then.